So basically what we're going to talk about is the arrangement types. Now, when you're creating the CCS enrollment for a child, you need to select the relevant arrangement type. Now, majority of the times you're going to select one of these two, CWA or RA, this one. Sometimes if it's with an organization, you'll choose an OA, and then very rarely you use the ACCS, okay? I'll explain why about the ACCS in a second as well. So complying written agreement is the most common, which means, and that's where you have your parents, fill out your CWA forms and whatnot. And it basically just means that the child is entitled to CCS and they will be claiming, okay? If you have a situation where the family is not entitled to CCS, we recommend, and the department also recommends, to still submit your children, but just submit them as a relevant arrangement, okay? And the difference is basically under a CWA, the child will be able to receive CCS payments, whereas under an RA, they will not, okay? However, you will still be able to create an enrollment ID either under either category. And what that means is every single week when you submit your sessions, those children will be submitted to the government. Now, the reason it's important for an RA is because if the family situation changes at a later stage, if we're not creating enrollment IDs for children, they're not getting submitted. So when the situation changes and they go to Senate to try and claim, what will happen is it becomes a bit of like a troublesome issue because they haven't had any sessions prior to that. So there's no track record of their child's attendance, okay? This was very big when coronavirus started as well. A lot of parents were in that boat where they weren't claiming prior to coronavirus, and then a lot of people lost their jobs and they had to go in and claim for CCS, and it just became a little bit of a nightmare for some parents. So what they've recommended to us is always get your parents to create an enrollment ID, and whether it's a CWA claiming CCS or not claiming as an RA. Okay, so when you're not claiming, you submit as an RA. The difference between the two is basically this is predominant on, like, in terms of submission, is needs like CRN numbers and date of birth and all that to match the system, whereas the RA, you don't need the CRNs. It doesn't even need to be confirmed by the parents. It would just go into the database as a received sort of enrollment, just to let the government know what's the attendance pattern, basically. All right. So they're different ones. And then obviously, if you have an arrangement with an organization, you use that in more rare cases. And the reason why I said don't use the ACCS is because we've spoken to the CCS department, and children that are on ACCS need to be submitted as a CWA, and then the ACCS be applied on top of that CWA, okay? Very few cases will you ever have a child be submitted straight as an ACCS child, because the criteria is, do they have a legal guardian or not? The legal guardian may be a carer, an auntie, even like a foster parent, right? However, they're all still considered legal guardians, and they will be created as a CWA, and then ACCS be applied on top. Whereas when you have a child that doesn't have one legal guardian in like a group home, for example, that's when you go through the ACCS channel. But you can't just even apply as an ACCS. You actually have to contact the CCS department and get permission first, okay? So if you have ACCS children, more likely than not, you're going to submit them as a CWA and apply the ACCS on top, okay? It's something that the government has told us recently that they are, it's something that the government's recently told us that they are looking into. They haven't been stringent on it up until now, but there is a point in time where they will actually knuckle down and make sure that everyone's doing it correctly. So if you do have any ACCS children, make sure you submit them as a CWA first and apply the ACCS on top, okay? Really quickly, so everyone knows, we have, and you probably have seen this many times, app cheat sheets for parents. See if it loads here on my simulator. It may or may not. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's just one of those things because it's a simulator. I'll try one more time, hope for the best. No, okay, so we do it the other way. Oops, my bad. Give me a sec. We do have guides on how people can do this, right? But essentially, okay, I'm using like the old setup. Your setup will look a little bit different, but it'll be very similar content. Basically, we have the app cheat sheet, which the parents can access from their phone, as you saw before, from their app. And one of the things that they can do is this here, sign, where'd it go? this one here, sign a CWA form, okay? And the steps are very simple for parents. They just go onto their app, which is this one, okay? As long as they've linked to their child correctly, you click on their child's name, click on the little ellipsis, and then sign CWA form, okay? And this will pull through the information on their profile in terms of their days, their session of care, their price, etc. And then the parent will be able to see all their rooms and all that sort of stuff, and basically sign that off if they're happy with it, okay? So it is different to the online form. Good question though.